So, when it comes to every major holiday, Valentine's Day, Easter, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, etc., how often do you see anything Easter-related get represented in any type of media? The answer is not too often. Though, unlike most other holidays, Easter is the most inconsistent out of all of them, as it often comes whenever it feels like it. Sometimes it's in March, while other times it's in April. Not even SpongeBob, which has an episode for nearly every single holiday except for Thanksgiving, seem to have an episode related to Easter at all, unless you count Bunny Hunt, but that episode is not even related to Easter at all. Only face/off model from the Patrick Star Show counts in this regard. Even in terms of movies, there aren't that many. Most of the ones that are considered Easter movies either don't relate to Easter, as they just have a rabbit as the main character, or they've fallen into obscurity. Legitimate question, have any of you guys ever heard of a movie called The Dog Who Saved Easter? No? Well, I haven't heard of that movie either until doing research for this video. So, with this in mind, it makes it kind of disappointing that of the ones that are directly about Easter, which isn't a crossover, only Hop is about Easter, and is well known about. And it's a 2011 Illumination live-action/animation hybrid movie, and is the second Illumination movie overall. But in spite of the fact that this is only Illumination's second movie, it's their most hated movie by a landslide. Not even those who like Illumination and consider their movies good would dare to step up for Hop, though this is admittedly a trap that a lot of second installments tend to fall into, as they'd either fall into obscurity or be considered as one of their studio's most hated films. A Bug's Life and Robots being the biggest examples in this regard. Very rarely does a second installment in any company's history of films or TV shows tend to be a beloved classic. Disney got extremely lucky with Pinocchio, for example. Aside from Illumination's movies that were released throughout 2021 to 2022 and November 2023 to now, this is actually one of the only Illumination movies that I haven't seen in full, mainly because back in 2011, the stepbrother that I had when I visited my dad every weekend wouldn't let me draw while watching this film with him, leading me to storm out of that room at the time, so I didn't get the chance to watch this movie in its entirety at the time. But when I watched this movie with the friend group of mine, after the wheel of names we were using landed on this film, is Hop 2011 this irredeemable abomination that needs to be torn to shreds in a merciless way? Well, no. I mean, the film is not good, don't get me wrong, but it's not the worst movies ever created material, because at best, this movie is incredibly generic, but at worst, this movie has some pretty bad scenes and some very unfortunate implications, but tiny little scenes in a movie don't make an entire film unsalvageable, unless it actively made what the film was building up to even worse. Gabby's Dollhouse the movie being the go-to example in this regard, but Hop is not one of those films. So, what is the premise of this movie? Well, have you seen my review of Rock Dog? That is literally how I could describe this movie in a nutshell. Only, this movie came out 6 years before Rock Dog. Basically, this rabbit named Ebi dreams of playing music. But oh no, he can't play music because his father wants him to become the Easter Bunny. So Ebi decides to run away from his home so that he could follow his dreams of playing music. Before he then runs into a guy named Fred, who has his own subplot of his family desperately wanting him to find a job, but every single job he's gone to didn't exactly work out for him. While this chick named Carlos puts together a plan to take over as the Easter Bunny, no matter what it takes. And I basically described the entire movie in a nutshell without getting into very many spoiler territories. The first issue that I do need to bring up in regards to this movie is that it feels incredibly undercooked, where at best, the film feels extremely rushed, where we aren't properly introduced to any of the characters and how they're like after the prologue of the film where we see the characters and what they've been doing after they grew up. But at worst, this movie is front-loaded with a lot of filler. Barely anything of interest is really happening throughout the film. After Ebi and Fred basically meet each other, the most that ever happens throughout the rest of the film is that these ninja bunnies are trying to find Ebi, and that's really about it. While I will give this movie some props and say that this movie at least comes up with its own characters before having them meet up with the random human character, as opposed to the live-action Smurfs movies or even the 2018 Peter Rabbit movie. But any sequence in this movie that is not directly related to EB going to auditioning, as well as the sequences that take place in this Easter factory, could literally be cut out of the film and you would miss nothing. That is, except for the worst sequences of this movie. And I'm of course referring to that infamous scene where EB basically poops jelly beans on Fred's car, and he does this so frequently throughout the film that Fred's sister actually eats them. I, on the other hand, would steer clear of those jelly beans, because I have no clue where those jelly beans have been, especially considering the fact that they literally came out of a rabbit's butt. Also, that sequence where EB makes a scene out of a bunch of children being in bunny costumes to the point where he loses his mind, gets out of the bag that Fred was carrying him in, and was about to expose his own secret in front of everyone, leading Fred to have to pretend to have EB be a puppet, was just an extremely awkward, cringe-inducing, and agonizing sequence. Also, I've never seen any other film where the antagonist was actually justified to do what they did throughout this film to the point of barely doing anything wrong. That is except for the Aristocats, though I've yet to have watched that film. Basically, in this movie, all Carlos wanted to do throughout the film was to have the Easter Bunny's job, since, you know, he's the OG Easter Bunny's second in command, and he's been helping you for years. But yet, he basically shoots down this offer because I guess that this bunny is racist towards chicks, but yet the movie decides to treat Carlos as the villain because he tried to eliminate them. I mean, that piece of dialogue in the film where he basically laughs in Carlos' face for suggesting the idea that a chick could also take the mantle as the Easter Bunny basically solidifies this. He basically decides to act racist towards someone who's been by your side and helping you for years. And then when Carlos ends up getting defeated in the climax, he basically allows Fred to be the Easter Bunny right after he was under the impression that he killed his son. And while we're on this subject, it's incredibly trucked up that EB decided to fake his own death and frame it on Fred because you were wanting to go to an audition of yours. Like, all you could have done was hide, and then when the coast would be clear, then it would be fine to go to the limo of yours. But sure, EB, frame your so-called friend as a murderer slash cannibal so that you could be a musician. And I actively don't believe EB and Fred when they say that they'd had some good times with each other. Because in the movie, he basically ruined Fred's opportunity to get a job at the video game studio that he was about to get a job at, and bugged Fred while he was in the studio because he didn't want to get caught by the ninja bunnies. Well, here's a solution then, EB. Just hide on the floor in the back seat! And he also humiliated Fred in front of everyone at a school play. But overall, while I do still find Hop 2011 to be a pretty bad movie, it's not the worst thing ever. It would probably be Illumination's worst movie, since I have seen all of their movies up to The Secret Life of Pets 2, but I haven't seen their 2021, 2022, Migration, or 2024 movies. But still though, Hop, to summarize it clearly, is generic. The film feels like it was written in one draft due to how directionless it feels. It has unfortunate implications regarding its themes and what it's trying to say, and if you want to watch a film that is Easter themed, just watch Rise of the Guardians instead.
Coming up next, it's ha! Boom, baby!
The Emperor's New Groove.
Booyah!